Hello, my name is Wyatt, and today I'm going to teach you how to change your oil in your car. What your oil does, it helps lubricate the components in your engine to move against each other at 3,000 to like 5,000 RPM smoothly. If you don't have oil in there, your engine will wear down, and the life won't be as long as you want it to be. This engine has almost 270,000 miles. It's a 2008 Town & Country, has a 3.8 liter V6. We got this van in around, I think it was like probably 2009, 2010, and it had about, I want to say maybe 30,000 miles on it. We have stayed on top of the oil change schedule every 2,000, 3,000 miles, and because of that, in 2021, this engine is still running strong with no problems. So, before we get into the good stuff, the hard work, when we talk about something, when we talk about numbers.
Before we get into the good stuff, like I said, when we talk about some numbers, so if you're ever walking through a auto parts store or Walmart or a gas station, you see these jugs of oil and it has these numbers on them. So what these numbers mean, the W means winter, and the number 4 means the thickness of the oil in cold temperatures. So the lower the number, the thinner the oil is, and the better that it will perform on cold startups. Now this number right here is the viscosity level at operating temperature. So the van behind me, the Town & Country, the operating temperature is about 180 degrees. So at 180 degrees, the viscosity level of this oil is 20. Here are the things that you need to change your oil. So first and foremost, you need your oil, of course, and then you need your filter. What your filter does, it helps filter out the bad stuff when the oil recirculates through the engine. It helps filter out maybe metal shavings or just really bad stuff to keep it out of your pistons. And now, next, your air filter. It's always smart to change your air filter every time you change your oil. What your air filter does, it filters out all the elements in the air when the air goes into the engine, mixes with the fuel, and creates power. Next, you would need a oil filter wrench. What this does, it gets the oil filter off. I mean, you can use your hand, and then there's an attachment that you can put on oil filters where you can use a socket. And then, of course, you need your sockets. You use that. You can either use sockets or you can use a wrench to get that drain plug off and put it back on. Now, I always like to use a breaker bar because the longer something is, the more leverage I will have to get that drain plug off. When I first changed oil, I didn't use a breaker bar and I just smashed my knuckles really bad up against the engine. So if you have a breaker bar, you can get it off more smoothly and you don't have to use as much energy. Now, you need some chocks. And because of that, if your car isn't high enough, you need to get it up on ramps or jack stands. Today, I'm using ramps. I like to use ramps because I don't really trust jack stands under a car this big. So I'm using ramps. So with these chocks, when I get the car up on the ramp, I smash chocks under the wheel on the opposite side. So I'm pulling up the front end of the car. The front end of the car is going on the ramps. So when I do that, I'm going to put the chocks on the back wheels, and that is because when you're on the ramp, you always need to put your parking brake on. And if that parking brake somehow fails, guess what rolls back with nothing to stop it? Your car. And it's going to smash into another car, it's going to smash into a tree, and you're just going to have a whole slew of problems. So I'll always put chocks in the back and on the opposite wheels from where it's being jacked up. Okay, now time to get into the good stuff. The van is up on the ramps, chocks on the back wheels. Now it's time to go under the car. I forgot to mention, when changing oil, you always need to have some kind of bucket under it to catch the oil, because you do not want oil to spill all over the ground or the EPA will come after you. So, right here is a drain plug. Now, almost every bolt on a car is metric because, well, metric is better. People don't agree with that, but metric is better. But back to what I was saying. But yeah, this is the drain bolt. Right here is the oil filter. Now, every oil filter is a different color. Doesn't really matter. But this one is blue. So, I'm using my breaker bar. This is a 17 millimeter socket. So we're going to get under there. And we're going to break it loose. I just broke it loose. I could probably get it off with my hand. And now, a moment of truth to see if I get my hands dirty. Here it comes. Alright, so this will take maybe, it depends what car. This has about 5 quarts of oil in it, so this can take probably 10 minutes for all of it to get out. You need to get as much as you can out, even if it's the little drips. You need to get most of it out. And you see how black that is? Yeah, that's why you need to change your oil. Okay, all the oil is almost out, but let's talk about the drain plug real quick. So this is what keeps all the oil in. Now these drain plugs, they can have a problem of not sealing all the way. So every single time that you change your oil, you always need to change the gasket. I'm going to say that again. Every time that you change your oil, you always need to change the gasket. So we're going to put this on, and there you go. Now let's inspect this real quick. All the threads are nice, so it will go in and create the best seal possible. If you ever seen a dinged up thread, it is never bad to go to the AutoZone store or auto parts store and get a new drain plug. These can be like $3-5 to get the cheapest one. So it's a little windy, so ignore that. But yeah, if the threads are dinged up, you need to go to the auto parts store and get a new one, and it's not expensive at all. And while you're there, you can get yourself a set of gaskets. Okay, now, if it's dripping like that, then, I mean, you pretty much got 99.99% of it out. So, we're going to start putting the drain plug back on. So, we're going to put it on there. And now, I'm going to get my socket. It's that same 17 millimeter. I'm going to tighten it. And just don't over tighten it and ruin the threads, because that will be an expensive repair. But you just tighten it to where it's snug. Now, I was able to get the drain plug off without getting oil on my hands. But now here comes the messy part. Changing the oil filter. So, get your pan ready. Get it under it. Get your wrench. This is an oil filter wrench. Get it on there. And now,
you tighten it. It's my least favorite part. Slightly loosen it until oil drips out. Make sure I don't get oil on my camera. And now you can either do it barehanded or have gloves or just get a rag. I don't wear gloves because I don't get good grips on tools and parts. So I'm gonna use a rag. I'm gonna use a shop rag. I'm gonna get it off. Okay, let's dump it out. And that's what it looks like without the filter. Time to put the new one back on. So here's the new one. It's brand new. What you always need to do, I'm gonna dip my finger in the old oil and I'm going to put oil on the gasket. What this does, it maximizes sealing. So when you put the filter on, it won't leak. So let's get it up there. And spin it on. Get it to where you can't turn it with your hands anymore. Now, get your wrench and just start tightening it. Okay, before I move on to putting the new oil in, I'm just gonna go ahead and put the new air filter in. This is what air filters usually look like in modern cars. It has these fins. It looks similar to a radiator, if you ever seen a radiator, but it's made of a kind of clothy like material. And then if you look on the front, it has a rubber border and it has this mesh. This acts as almost like another filter. So we're gonna get this on. Now, depending on what car you have, these things can be a pain to get off. These air boxes can be a pain to get off. So I'm going to take off this hose, just get it out of the way. And now I'm going to use a screwdriver and I'm going to loosen up this clamp that goes into the intake. Now, this filter doesn't look as bad as I thought. However, the fins are a little bent. If you can see, they're a little bent. There's some trash in there. But since I already got one, I'm gonna change it anyways. So you just set it in there. And it should fit perfectly. Now I'm gonna put the air box back on. After a considerable amount of time of wrestling that thing, of trying to get it aligned, it's finally on. So we're gonna put this hose on, put it on,
Make sure it's all the way on. We're gonna get our screwdriver again, and we're gonna tighten up this clamp for this intake hose. Now, when you're tightening up clamps, you always got to make sure it is where it needs to be if it's on the actual hole for this. And you tighten it up real good, because the smallest leak can hinder performance greatly. So now, everything's on. And now we're going to move on to putting the new oil in. Now for the moment of truth. We're going to put the new oil in. So the oil fill caps, they're usually found on the valve covers, which is this right here. Now this is a V6, so there are 2 valve covers. And you need to look to see if you see this where it usually says engine oil and then the type of oil that it takes. So we're going to take this off and set it to the side. Now we're going to put this nice old funnel in. Now the fill thing is very, very shallow, so we kind of have to, I gotta hold the funnel and hold the jug at the same time. It's a little difficult, but once you get in the hang of it, it becomes easier. So we're gonna take safety cap off, set that to the side. Now we're gonna hold this. All right, and that's it. It's all the oil. It's 5 quarts. It will make a mess slightly around it, but that's fine. Just don't pour a whole quart over it, and you'll be fine. So we put it back on. And now, every time that you change oil, you always, always, always need to start the car, let it run for a couple minutes, then check the level. This is the dipstick where you check the level. Now, we're not going to check it now because it's not going to read correctly since we just took out oil and put new one in. So, I'm going to let it run for a couple minutes, and then we're going to check the dipstick. Okay, it's been running for about 5 minutes now. That should be enough. So, what you need a rag or a paper towel or a shop towel. You grab the dipstick, pull it up, put your rag right here so no oil drips off. Take it out, wipe it clean. And now, you put it back in, all the way back in, like let it latch. Now take it out again. Now, since this is new oil, it's a little bit difficult to tell. So, what I do, I get my finger, I run it across until I feel it. And I feel it about right here. Now, if you look at it, we're just above that safe zone. Just above it. Anything that is lower than that zone, anything that is in this area is bad. You need to fill it up until it lines up to this, or even slightly, just slightly above the safe zone. You do not want to underfill it, and you do not want to overfill it. It has to be just right. So now you wipe it clean. Nice. And then you stick it back in. After you have everything settled and it's running nice, always look below the car to look for any oil leaks. Because if you have oil leaking while you're driving, 1, you'll probably get pulled over and fined, and 2,
you're losing oil and you don't have any lubricant in your car, which is very bad. That concludes this video. Changing oil is very simple. It takes a little bit of time. Normally when I do it, when I'm not videoing myself, it takes about maybe 30-45 minutes. And it costs around $30 to $50. Mine costed around almost $40 because I use Valvoline, because I've always used Valvoline. I think Valvoline is the best one, but that's in my opinion. You can get cheaper oil if you're on a budget, like STP. You can get those, and it should run around maybe $25-$30. And auto parts stores, they have a deal where you can get an air filter, an oil filter, and all the oil that you need, all for $25-$30. So from every vehicle, the price ranges, but it's better than taking it somewhere where they charge you almost double for it. On the final note, when you take the old oil out, what I do, I pour it into the new oil jug, and I take that jug and the old oil filter, I take it to an auto parts store. I take it to AutoZone, O'Reilly, Advanced Auto, or Napa, and almost every single of those stores, they recycle oil. Never, ever, ever pour oil down a drain or throw it away. It is extremely, extremely bad for the environment. And if the EPA finds out, they're going to come get you and fine you. So, take it to your parts store, and it's free. They don't charge you for recycling it. You just put the jug on the counter, put the oil. I usually put the oil filter in a bag so oil doesn't leak everywhere. Put it on the counter, and that's it. So that concludes this video. Like I said before, oil change is fairly simple. It's the most important form of maintenance that you need to do on your car to make it run long and run better. And that's it. The next video will be how to change a tire, because believe it or not a lot of Americans know how to change a tire, and if you have a flat tire on the highway and you don't know how to change it, you're screwed.